Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Shout out to the graphics team who always keep me on my toes. Tonight, the last of the TNG Star Trek movies, Star Trek Nemesis. I don't know which one this is. I think it's number 10. Then we jump over to J.J. Abrams when he's doing Star Wars before he got the contract to do Star Wars, talking about 2009 Star Trek. But let me just say this, all joking aside, and thank you for tuning in. Quick service announcement. I have to apologize for something that I said last episode. I don't know if you're watching them in order, so you may see this before you see the other one. Last week, we did Star Trek Insurrection, and I made some jokes, and I said that the movie was kind of slow and boring, and, you know, I kind of tore it up. And then I saw this one for the second time in my life, and I realized I have to apologize. So before we start the show, let me just say to the audience and to Chris, I know I really hurt him when I destroyed that movie that he loves so much, Star Trek Insurrection. I apologize. Mr. Frakes, I apologize to you, but not to Stuart Beard. And with that, let's start the show. All right, so we are going to do Star Trek Nemesis. I think it's number 10. The last of the TNG crew. There is going to be no generations in the next one. We're not going to see them with young versions of Kirk like they did in the reverse of 94 Star Trek Generations. But I can't do the show alone. I need to bring in some help. Let's bring in the next doctor. Sir, how are you doing?
I am excellent. Happy to be here for wrapping up the TNG movies.
Now that you are here, I want to apologize to you too, because I was rude. I was talking about Insurrection. You were on the show, and I didn't want you by osmosis to get dragged into that. I'm sorry.
Not a problem. And I agree with the sentiment after watching this for the second time as well.
Yes. There will not be a third.
Not at all.
Last but not least, we want to bring in the person responsible for us watching this movie tonight, and for me opening the show tonight. This is the executive consultant. Sir, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, except for a few things. One, this is not the second time I watched this movie, or the third or the fourth. I've seen this movie about 100 times, if not more. And as far as you apologizing, yeah, you should, because Insurrection was a damn good movie.
In comparison to this one. And as far as you watching this one 100 times, you have my sympathy, sir.
There is a name for my pain.
This is a Star Trek movie. I'm going to see it a lot.
I sense your pain. Share it with me.
This movie.
That went a lot too.
This movie. You know, it opens up with just gratuitous action scene that's unnecessary. Like, oh, yeah, I want to go down there. I want to check out the Argo. Oh, okay. You know, I'm thinking, you know, some space futuristic, you know, drilling or sensory equipment. It's a dune buggy. And he's just, you know, going through the dunes at unsafe velocities. You know, this whole movie was an unsafe velocity, quite frankly. And they definitely could have dialed it back.
Rashad, I'm going to agree with you, and I'm also going to disagree with you, but it's going to make absolute sense. But I want you to please continue with what you're saying, because you're absolutely right.
You know, like, it was not necessary to do that. You know, this whole movie, like the whole pacing of the movie felt off to me. The premise of the movie, while it was a decent premise, the execution just wasn't there. And on a personal level, the more I see the Enterprise E, the more I dislike it. You know, why is this ship? Why is this ship sleek? Like it's only in space. It doesn't need to look sleek. You know, the other one, it was a bit more robust. You know, that was fine. Making it sleeker just for the sake of making it sleeker like a race car, it was unnecessary. I mean, there's just a lot that I just don't like about this. One thing I will give it some praise, though, you know, harkening back to, I believe it was Wrath of Khan, Riker had a Kirk moment when he was fighting near the end, and, you know, the I forgot the name of the alien.
Oh, yeah. The Reman.
The Reman was, hanging on, and he started kicking him, and he was like, I have had enough of you. And it was the same kind of moment. I did like that. And I don't know if they really went back and made that an homage, but I really did appreciate that they put that in there.
Shout out to Riker for working for that kill, because he took some hits. That Raymond,
he definitely took some hits, and it did make you feel like, oh man, maybe he's not gonna make it through this.
Yeah, the man bat had some strength to him. He
definitely did. Also appreciated Janeway. As much as I dislike Voyager, I do love the representation of capable and powerful women in the series.
Shout out to a paycheck for that.
So I appreciate that they put Admiral Janeway in this. Mm-hmm. And also the opening Best Man speech. I thought that was a great speech as well. But of course, Sir Patrick Stewart delivered it. Come to expect that. And that's where the enjoyment ended, really. After that, it was just a slog, through this whole mess. And quite frankly, I won't do it again. 2 is too many.
Rashad, before you finish, did you mention the go-karts at the beginning of the movie?
I definitely mentioned the go-karts.
Okay.
The gratuitous, action scene. Yeah. No.
Okay.
Just
to be fair to the movie, there was no danger, no apparent danger, so he could go in the dune buggy that had his spine rattling like a baby's toy. There was no kind of suspension in that thing built in the 24th century. There was no suspension.
None whatsoever. Why does it even have wheels? Why doesn't it just hover?
Why did none of the bullets that those primitive people shot hit any of the main cast? You clearly hear it hitting the sides of that dune buggy that they're in or whatever, but magically none of them hit any of the cast, even though there's like 7 of them and they have 2 rifles, automatic rifles each or whatever like that, but none of the main cast is shot, even though they have a doctor who can heal them. No blood.
None. I mean, the best plot armor for the worst movie out there.
Except for Data. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, that wasn't the best send off ever. Another reason why I don't like this movie, but yeah, this movie was just not it. This is not the send off that the TNG deserved.
Anybody know that song? Brighter than the sun. What is it, Chris? I know you know it. Brighter than the day.
First of all, you're screwing it all up.
I know. I don't know the words.
First of all, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. It was a good song. It was a good segment from the beginning of the movie where Data was singing it at the Troy and Riker's wedding to the end where before, started singing, never saw the sun shining so bright, never saw things going so right. It was great. Great scene. I love that scene. And a shout out to you, Rashad, for mentioning the fact that the speech that Picard did was entertaining. I love that speech. I actually use that speech, and sometimes when I have to do a speech for as a best man or something, I use that speech because it's a great speech. He delivered it so eloquently. I love that. I love Data singing. I love seeing Guinan. I love seeing Wesley Crusher, even though it was not an actual movie. But it was really, really, really good scene, right? I'm just going to go, right? James likes going last sometimes, so he's going to have that privilege. He's going to have good last.
Please, because I need time.
I actually like this movie, right? Uh-huh. Now, granted, I think of all 4 of them, I think it was a switch between 3 and 4. I do. I was very disappointed about this movie. And the reason why, as I said this last week, I said that when I saw the trailer for this movie, I was super pumped. I was super excited. It's one of my favorite trailers. At that time, it was one of my favorite trailers I've ever seen. It just made it look like such a great action, jam-packed movie. Then I saw it, and you know what? I think y'all some haters. I'm smelling some haters in the ring. But I agree. There were a lot of parts in there was kind of boring. right? It was kind of slow, and it was kind of droll. And I don't know if it was the direction, I don't know if it was the lighting, but it just felt very dragged throughout. Even every action scene they had just felt like so dragged at times. And I think the small improvements could have been made to make this movie good. I think it was a little bit ridiculous to have the Remans in it. I think it was a little bit ridiculous to have the Remans be the main antagonist, where the Next Generation villains have, outside the board have primarily been the Romulans. That's why the Klingons were in the original series movies as the villains sometimes. So it should have stayed with the Romulans. I think they should have brought back Tasha Yar's little granddaughter or daughter or whatever like that. I think she should have been the main villain, and they could have still kept basically the same concept, just didn't need to have a Picard twin, right? If you wanted to throw in something for B4, or Data in this case, I wouldn't have used B4. I would have brought back Laura's ass, right? I think that could have worked. Laura and the Romulan commander could have been working together. It could have worked in a lot of different ways than they had it work, because they wanted to make such a. Originally, when they made this movie, they wanted Bane's character. I forgot his name right now. Somebody forgot his name last week. Tom Hardy. Mm-hmm. They wanted Tom Hardy to be the next incarnation of Khan. And they wanted him to be very, very good villain. And I'm not saying he did a bad job. It's amazing how much he gained muscle. I'm not saying he's did a very bad job. I think he did a very good job considering what he was given. However, the direction of the movie just was not there. Say what you want about First Contact and say what you want about Insurrection. They did, especially First Contact, in my opinion. Insurrection was a little bit funnier. But they did add an element of humor along to danger. There wasn't really anything funny about this movie. There's, excuse me, I'll go to the gym because he had to go naked on the Beta Z. Or him shouting out the Doom Bucky or Worf looking like a puppet in the back going like this for no reason. Like, I'm just explaining to you that there was a lot about this movie that I just felt like I felt like it had the potential to be such a great movie, but the small nuances they threw in there were not the right ones to throw in there to make this the phenomenal movie that they were trying to be, and they could have lightened it up just a tad bit. The Remans came out of nowhere. You ain't seen them or heard from any Next Generation episode, and then boom, I'm like, who are these tall mofos, right? They're just destroying the Romulans from the scene one. That was the first scene. Scene one, right? Also want to shout out and call out you two liars. You said this was the second time you saw Star Trek Nemesis, right?
Yeah, maybe third. Yeah, it is a third.
Federation Mondays, we went to go see Star Trek Nemesis.
This just tells you how forgettable this movie is.
Did you make that one?
I came that time.
I think you made this one.
I'll give you, listen, because I was so bad to that 1930s German movie that we saw last week called Insurrection. By the way, on the latest episode of The Transporter Room, Jonathan Frakes himself says, looking back at that movie, don't blame him, but he just said, it's funny that they make this world that's supposed to be all perfect, and it's full of white people, nothing but white people. Jonathan Frakes said that himself. Latest episode of Transporter Room, him, Michael Dorn, on that episode. Check it out, okay? LeVar Burton is on there as well as I think the showrunner for Star Trek Picard. And so that's why they were on the show. So I was just listening to that earlier today. I kid you not, it's on there. No, but I'll give you that. Maybe I saw it 3 times, but am I watching the movie? Am I watching my eyelids? Am I praying that it's all over? They all blend together. I really don't know. So
are we just enjoying each other's company, and this is background noise, like the background radiation of the universe?
Exactly. We could have been going to the food carts while the movie was playing.
Tacos.
Back, the credits are rolling. It was a good night.
Was there anything else that you wanted to proclaim about this movie, executive consultant?
I had to say that I did like the fight scene at the end, even though once again that was also very it should have been a little bit better.
I wasn't even going to
wait. You didn't like it?
I did not like it.
Okay.
I did not like the way it ended with Picard just standing there like contemplating life. He had time to go back down the steps, get the phaser, and shoot. But he's standing there like, oh man, I just killed my twin. I'm having an existential crisis. This is not the Picard that we know. The Picard that we know is a man of action, and he would have realized the situation and taken care of business.
I wasn't talking about, when I said the last fight scene, I wasn't talking about between Picard and Shinzon. I was talking about the fight scene of the ships. of the scimitar and Enterprise.
Oh, okay. That
Well,
wasn't
I
the
think
final fight scene then.
to pick up though to Rashad's point, let me just give kudos and Chris, do you have anything else you want to say to that? Okay. Kudos, and I'll start with this point to Deanna Troi, who I think this is going to seem like a big statement, but if you watch TNG, you'll understand what I mean. With the exception of maybe 1 or 2 episodes, and with the exclusion of all the films except this one, she actually does something. They give her character something to do that's important. I kid you not. Like, it's so disrespectful to the character because she's a main character.
I'm laughing because it's definitely true.
Yeah. Okay. So in this one, I'm not going to say what happens to her, but if you're familiar with parlance on YouTube, the Remans SA her, okay, mentally, psychic wise, okay, and so she puts it together as an officer, and I think Chris, we talked about this when we were doing the insurrection episode, that she's using her skills as a commander because she's a Starfleet officer. Shout out to who's the captain on There Are Three Lights, who told her to get in a uniform. Oh,
I forgot his name, but I know you're talking about.
yeah, Jellicoe. Shout out to Captain
Jellicoe.
Jellicoe, who reminded her that she's a Starfleet officer, and she rose above the situation, and she used what she knew she could use to save the lives of the ship, even though it was revolting to her to jump into the mind of somebody who had just done that to her, right? And she doesn't even hesitate when Picard calls her from her, I forget where she was, but she wasn't on the bridge when he calls her because he needs her there, right? To Rashad's point, when Picard is like having this existential threat, like, should I kill myself or not, even though he's not really me and we're two different people, and that's what the whole movie is about nature versus nurture, right? She doesn't hesitate at all, and she actually enjoys it much like when Data destroys the Klingons who had just kidnapped Geordi, and he enjoys it when they're destroyed. So for me, that was a nice callback, and salute to Marina Sirtis, who actually got something to do as a character, Deanna Troi, because
that is very good because Gates McFadden surely did not.
Well, it's one or the other, Chris. You can't have two women actually have something to do in these movies, even though it's the future and it's equality and everything.
I mean,
like
what
that.
do you want? More black people? Come on.
No. Oh, the end battle, we were talking about that. I wrote these down because I got to touch on these points. The end battle was exciting. It was well done. I found it tense. I've had enough of you. We did a callback to that. We had the man bat from Batman there. They all look like they had been working out prior to shooting a scene. They all look sweaty, even though they're in the dark. Shout out to their cholesterol, right? And then when they ram the two ships together, like, I like the ship. It's a beautiful ship. There's an episode where they explain why they make the ships all streamlined now in canon and everything like that. But unless you watch TNG really, really, really like that, you're not gonna
something to do with warp damaging the.
I mean, I do. I know about that. How traveling at warp, they still want it to be streamlined because of I forgot what they specifically said. I do know about that. It's still stupid.
Okay,
it's traveling.
I think the ship looks beautiful.
A Borg cube can go faster than
they use those warp
transwarp.
Even at warp, a Borg cube can go faster than Federation starships, and it's a cube.
It's my favorite looking ship, Enterprise.
To be fair to them, they are the Borg. Okay.
You're right. Right.
So subspace resistance is futile. What are you talking about? Okay? We should know better. I have a quick announcement. This is Picard. You may not have seen I saw the director's cut. So my version of this movie was 4 hours of eyelids. Okay, but there's a scene with Picard. He's on the bridge, and they're getting these Tyson blows from the scimitar, who basically looks like it could just pick the ship up. Shout out to Picard if you've seen that. And Picard, he almost looks at the camera. He almost breaks the fourth wall, but he says to Worf, he goes like this, and he says, "Get me Commander Sealer." Where's Commander Sealer at? And Worf says, "I don't know. She wasn't in the script." And that's what I was wondering. Where's Commander Sealer? She's a Romulan. She knows them. Yet we're seeing Man-Bat Remans, who we've never heard of before. Janeway knows about the Remans. She was halfway across the galaxy. She knows about the Remans. Are you serious? Picard knows about the Remans. And then they just show up to Romulus. No Federation ship has ever been to Romulus. This is said over and over again. I think to Chris's point that they were the big bads. That's why we saw them in season 1 time and again. It's not the Ferengi or whatever they tried to set up like that. That's why
season 1 was supposed to be. I mean, it was supposed to eventually be the Ferengi. And they changed it.
In the I forget the name of the episode, but when the people got from the 20th century got neutral zone in the neutral zone, and they said we're back, right? So the Federation has never even been to Romulus. And yet they just are there, or this is a normal thing. We're always here. We know about the Remans. We know how they treat them. How? How do you know that? We don't see that in DS9 where the Romulans are talking to Cisco about, yeah, we got this slave race cast that we, why are they telling Cisco that? So how would the Federation, it makes no sense. Last but not least, because I know we want to preview what we're doing next and coming up on the show. Shout out to that wedding. It was beautiful. Chris says he uses that speech. I just hope that I'm there one day when Chris starts to do that line from the thing so I can look at him and say, Chris, you're an ass, but I love it. Keep going. Because I can't
It'll be at your wedding.
Thank you. And I hope to get married someday to a woman that drives me crazy, but I love her. She can't help it. She's a female. Shout out to you, E, because I know you're somewhere steaming right now. But anyway, last but not least, I want to give a shout out. We've already shout out Commander Silla, who wasn't there, right? But shout out to somebody who was there, Wesley Crusher. The last time I saw Wesley Crusher, he was hanging with some Native Americans on a planet far, far away. I know somebody in America is like, thank God. But Wesley Crusher, he was on a planet far, far away on another neutral zone planet, okay, with Native Americans and with this really, really tall man who spoke very, very slowly and was almost out of breath.
Dakota?
And he told him, Wesley, you have magic powers. Why? Because you're really, really smart. And we're going to phase together through the galaxy. And yeah, you'll be back. You're over 18, aren't you? And Wesley said, yeah, Mom, I'll see you later. I got to have this academy experience. Shout out to you, Wesley, and the Traveler. I'm sure you had many adventures. But while he was away, we don't know what happened to him. But we do know that he could go beyond he had powers beyond the Borg. And yet somehow he's here, not to see his mother, who's his only living relative, but he's at Troy and Riker's wedding. Now, I'll give you Guinan. She's always been on the ship. We just assume she's getting drunk at the bar or holding up a sparkle gun to stop any fights in 10 Forward or whatever they call it on the Enterprise Z. But Wesley Crusher says, not only am I going to be in attendance, but I'm going to be in the wedding because I haven't seen you people in generations. Cut to the commercial, please.
What is your name?
My name is James Tiberius Kirk.
Are you afraid or aren't you? I will not allow you to lecture me. Then why do you stop me? I like this ship. It's exciting.
That's right. The next movie we're going to be reviewing in this franchise is Space Journey from 2009 movie review. But before we review that, I want to play that trailer one more time because there's a crucial thing, the crucial scene in this movie that I want to highlight. Even though it's next week, when we talk about it, I want to highlight it.
What is your name?
My name is James Tiberius Kirk.
Are you afraid or aren't you? I will not allow you to lecture me. Then why do you stop me?
Right there. Right there. Why didn't somebody stop them from making this movie? I don't understand why, but we're going to talk about it next week. But today we're talking about Star Trek Nemesis, the last one of the true Star Trek movies. I mean, is that consultant over there is Q of Continuum, and down there is the Next Doctor. We're going to go our final thoughts, thumbs up, thumbs down. Next Doctor, we're going to start with you. Tell us what you think.
If you couldn't have told already, this is an absolute thumbs down. this is just a disgrace to the way that they sent off the Next Generation. It shouldn't have happened. You know, Kelvin timeline or not, this is the one that they shouldn't have made.
All right, I'll go next and I'll let James wrap it up. Q. But I'm giving this a thumbs up. I completely understand and agree with everything the Next Doctor says. I completely agree with everything Q to continue is going to say. And there's a lot about this movie I really do not like. It's definitely not one of my favorite Star Trek movies. However, I do base it on, do I enjoy it? And yes, I still do enjoy it, even though I see a lot of flaws in this movie. Those better than the Batman, and I will take it over any space journey movie that you can think of. So that's why I give it a thumbs up. Q.
Listen, I can't disagree. It's their opinion, and they base it off of reason points what they've laid out. Here's my problem. The last movie we did, Insurrection, jokingly, I have my issues with it, but they had my man Raw Alpha. What am I gonna say? It's Big Balls Raw Alpha. It had to get a thumbs up. This movie doesn't have Big Balls Raw Alpha. I don't know the size of the man Bat's balls, but he was kicking Riker's ass. I will say that. No, he was throwing down. He was.
Why don't you talk about Shinzo?
Our eyes reflect our light. Shout out to Shinzon and that noisy suit that he was wearing. That he was like Ivan Ooze, but he was moving slow because it was like.
Shout out to you, the space zoot suit.
Oh, it was a Ziggy Stardust spacesuit. Look to that. I saw it in the museum earlier today. Now, what can I say about this movie that's good? I already said it. Let me say one more thing. You may not know this, and I don't really brag about this, but I know people in the industry. And this movie was directed by a friend of mine, Keith. We go way back. Now, Keith is a Star Trek fanboy, and he threw everything in this movie. That's why we saw it. And sometimes it's not best to give it to a fan. Sometimes you have to give it to somebody who, slow down, Keith. You're doing too much. And just like Keith, who has all the action figures and everything like that, Keith, you got to slow it down. But still, you did a good job. Not the best of the films. I'm going to give it a sideways. But wait, is there a redeeming factor? I think there is. Could this get a thumbs up? I think it can. There's a moment in the beginning when we see the Romulan Senate, and it has maybe 12 senators. So their whole planet is run by less people than we have in our one country's government. But anyway, the 12 senators, and the woman conspicuously leaves her mascara, whatever that is, on the table, and nobody says anything. And they're talking, and then it sprays up these spores like something out of Alien Covenant. And then he says, "Hey, I thought I told you to," and he gets up, he tries to chase her out the thing. And then they all start to melt. And I said, wait a minute, this reminds me of something. And I said, I remember, I know what it is. And at first I thought it was this man from Raiders of the Lost Ark. No, but that's too much. They didn't look like that. There was no blood and stuff like that. I said, that's too much. But they did kind of get gaunt. And then I remember who it was that they reminded me of. Yes, you thought he was gone. But he's never forgotten, baby. He's always going to be here. Time is in his holy hands. Yes, the Reverend. You know Reverend Kane was coming back. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give this movie what I shouldn't. But because they had my man Reverend Kane in there, just like they had Big Balls Roth on the last one, James is going to change his vote. Chris, you ready for this? This movie's getting a thumbs up for my man Reverend Kane. Here we go. Of the Romulan Senate. There you go. Look at that. There you go. All right. Thumbs up. And Chris, you'll look, and that's the bottom line.
Thank you so much for watching us here tonight. Star Trek Nemesis, the end of the Star Trek franchise. Watch the Clone Wars coming up in the next 3 movies. We'll see you next time. For Q, for Next Doctor, I'm the executive consultant.
Oh, wait. Remember, tribbles cure everything.
2 movies. We'll see you next time right here on Popular Review.